Hello and welcome to the Thursday, August 13th session of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. We'll start the meeting by going around and introducing ourselves. I am Sarah Waterman, the town staff liaison for the engineering department, and I'll go to my right.
Matt Prinzing, planning department, staff liaison.
Rygg, committee member.
Cheremeteff, committee member.
Pat Schichler, committee member.
Kenneth Crine, committee member.
Katie Rygg, committee member.
John Bennett, committee member.
John Getz, town board liaison.
And I'll note that Cynette Cavaliere is not here at this meeting, as we expect her back next meeting, and she sends her regards. Next, we'll move into the review and approval of minutes from July 19th, 2026.
July 9th.
Wow, July 9th, 2026. Thank you. Are there any motions?
I move that we approve the minutes of July
Second.
9th.
Okay, seeing there's a motion and a second, are there any comments, changes? Seeing none, Matt, will you hold the vote?
Bennett,
Aye.
Rygg,
Aye.
Crine,
Aye.
Schichler,
Aye.
Cheremeteff,
Aye.
Green.
Abstain.
Thank you. Seeing that passes, we'll move on to the standing report from Monroe County Environmental Management Council. Although this is a standing item, there was not a meeting last month, so we don't at this point have any minutes to review. I believe they resume, is it mid-September or October?
September.
So
my
we'll see
understanding.
minutes in October.
Yes.
Continuing on to review of required items. For town development projects, there's no updates or new projects at this time. For requests from town board, there's none at this time. And for updates for clean energy communities actions, there's none at this time. So we'll move into old business to talk about the climate action plan. With that, we have an advisory committee meeting taking place next week. That will be with town staff, with Madison, Quinn from the county, DES, and that staff will include the regular group of like Matt, myself, well, Matt will be out of town, myself, and Mark Valentine, and then also we have a number of department heads and some of the foremen in town coming, as they would be the people that would help implement project goals, different initiatives, so we want to be able to review that at the next meeting. Both talk about the results of the greenhouse gas inventory, but also what we can do next and details of the plan. Subsequently, the town will be having a public information session or public input session. At this point, the dates aren't concrete, but we're looking at the last week of August for colliers to present to the town board, which would be viewable and by the public, and the public would also be able to attend in person. And then we're hoping for the first week in August to have a public input session at a town board meeting.
You mean September?
Yes, I'm sorry. We're hoping that the first week in September, we would be able to have a public input session with the town board so that residents can provide their input, give feedback, provide comments. That wouldn't be something you have to be at in person if you want to provide comments. You would be able to also submit them online. So that's the tentative plan right now. I expect pretty soon this month we'll be having public information and social media and appropriate things to notify people of that.
So is there a formal communication plan or an informal communication plan being developed?
Currently it's informal, it will become formal. And it follows our general notifications of using the town website, social media, those types of avenues to educate the public about the meetings coming up.
Do you have a date for the meeting the last week in August? Did you say that was open to?
It would be the 26th, that's the Wednesday, so town board meetings, it would align with the town board meeting.
Okay.
And so would the next one, which would be the legislative session, which is the 2nd of September. I'm just kind of waiting because people are writing things down. So I wanted to ask if anyone had questions, comments on the climate action plan information. Okay. Seeing none, we'll continue into the town forestry plan. Do you want to lead on that?
Yeah, sure. So we submitted our application to the New York State DEC Urban Forestry Grant, round 17, yesterday. Thank you all for all the comments. It was really helpful for getting our project approach, our long-term planning organized, and considering everything that you guys were able to get the input in, and everything that applies from town plans to other plans throughout the county, and having those incorporated in what we want to, or establishing the need for the plan, as well as like our the framework for how we've gotten here for passing the public tree law, and establishing the tree department, and now moving forward, or having that mandate from the town board to move forward with town forestry plan. So yeah, that was all very helpful for us putting together the application. We decided on applying for, because you had to, in the submittal, say what type of inventory and assessment you were doing. There were two distinct ways, either the traditional method or a ground-based LiDAR method, and we decided to go with the traditional method. We ended up getting 3 different proposals. The first one, Davey, we had discussed previously with you. We got one from Planet Geo. So Davey actually gave us a proposal last year when we were first considering this that was for traditional tree inventory. And then when we went back to them, they said they no longer offer traditional tree inventories, and they only offer this ground-based LiDAR inventory and assessment. Planet Geo offers both. And then there was LBS Ecological, and they only offered the traditional method. But when we looked more and more into municipal plans throughout the state, there's the New York State Urban Forestry Management Council. They have this list of urban forest management plans from New York State cities and towns, and we looked at all 46 of these. Not a single one of them has used ground-based LiDAR, with the understanding, like, this is relatively new technology, so it may just not be adopted yet, but we also just don't have a lot of information to go off of other than what Davey and Planet Geo is telling us. We also found that there's a pretty high premium to using the LiDAR technology, which is cost-effective if you have a really dense area that you're scanning in. But from our understanding of speaking with, our parks foreman and just a general knowledge of what our town right-of-ways look like, we're not really we're not doing a very dense inventory. And so it made more sense to go with a traditional tree inventory. And another factor that we looked at is, the part of the grant selection process, or correct me on any part of this, I'm pretty sure I have this. So a portion of the grants are meant to be set aside for minority and women-owned business enterprises.
Can I correct you?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sorry. So New York State, for all of the grants that I know, including this one, has an MWBE goal of 30%. So if you get a grant and you're going through the RFP process, you need to be looking at those companies and or providing your RFP to them, or showing how you tried to provide it to them so that you tried to get proposals from them. An example, at minimum, and or have that 30% portion of the money going to one of those companies.
Well, I think it's 15 and 15. 15 minority, 15
Oh.
women-owned. It should be split. I don't think
On
it's
this
one or
one?
the other. Oh, I don't know about this one, but usually it's split 15 and 15.
No, it wasn't
but
for
30 total.
It wasn't for the Climate Smart that we just did, or for this one.
Oh,
the
it was
30.
one or the other?
It could have been a combination, but it didn't require 15 and 15.
Interesting.
Either way, there's a goal that they expect you to meet or show that you tried to meet. So one of the benefits of considering LBS, ecological, in our proposals is that they are an MWBE.
But
An MBE.
MB, minority.
So
yes, they are an MBE, but also we searched the state's inventory of MWBE, and there wasn't any on their inventory. There were no companies on their inventory that offered such a service for the LiDAR, but there were a few that offered traditional tree inventories, including LBS Ecological. So.
Sorry, I skipped ahead.
No, that's fine. So all those considerations are what led us to choose that option. And like I said, there's a longstanding tradition of doing tree inventories and assessments this way. So.
Can you just explain what the traditional is?
So that's where a arborist is going out and
And
physically measuring it all.
okay, that's what I
each
thought. I just
tree.
wanted to make sure.
Whereas the ground-based LiDAR, you have, the sensor attached to a vehicle that's driving along, collecting the information, and then an arborist is only looking at a subset of that data.
In
They're not
person.
looking
Like
at every
verifying.
single one. Exactly. And then they use AI typically to model any changes or any recommended and species identification and all that for the rest of the inventory.
And so this firm, that's the selected firm, what's it called again?
So we
So-
didn't select
You
a
didn't
firm.
select a
We
firm,
got
okay.
proposals to help us determine what our cost estimate would be.
Got it.
So part of the reason we got the three proposals was originally we started with Davy because we just had one from last year. We reached back out, requested one, and got the LiDAR-based
Okay.
proposal. Subsequently, we wanted more information because we wanted to consider traditional as well. So we went to Planet Geo, got a proposal for them, like presentation, that kind of information. And then Matt determined that LBS Ecological was also an option. He did reach out to a number of other groups asking for proposals, and those are just the three that we did get.
Okay.
So then we use those three proposals to kind of in combination and comparison to create an estimate for our grant. Those proposals also helped us get an estimate of how many trees we may have to inventory, which is helpful in determining the estimate for the tree inventory.
Great.
Can you tell me what the acronym, MBE is what you were saying?
Minority Business Enterprise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Minority business?
Enterprise.
Okay, thank you.
Or
Well, I think
women
it's minority or owned.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
minority-owned business enterprise or women-owned business enterprise.
Yeah.
So MB or WB.
Yeah, so we kind of put all of that information together. We have a work plan submitted as well, and we submitted that whole application yesterday. So the hope is, I think we're supposed to find out, is it October or is it later?
Yeah, in the
I
next
thought it
couple
was-
months,
Yeah.
we should be hearing whether or not we got the award. And ultimately, even if we don't get the award, we're hoping that we can move forward with a part of the inventory or part of the plan if we need to phase it over the next few years.
So that's to say that funds were requested for the budget this year.
Right.
Not the same amount of funds that were requested for the grant.
Right.
But a smaller amount of funds so that we could at least start the tree inventory.
So that would be 2027?
To start,
Right.
Okay.
yep,
Yes.
at minimum to start. So,
I think I asked this a couple of months ago, but I can't recall the response. Is there a time frame on when we have to use these funds by?
Yep.
Within 4 years.
Within 4 years, okay. Thank you.
And the three proposals we got, they effectively said that the entire process, the inventory assessment and plan could be completed within 14 months.
Okay.
I forget, did that 14 months include like that wouldn't include town board approval kind of thing for the plan, right?
Right, but that's not
So
spending
just the
funds,
consultant
right?
work would be
Yeah.
that 14 months.
Yeah, and I mean, even that 14 months, should say that 14 months also includes the procurement process for us to go out to RFP.
Got
So
it.
there's even, I think, 2 to 3 months that we factor in there to just go out and select our consultant, and then from there, we expect it to take that long.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Um,
It's exciting.
Yeah, I think, there's one item that we haven't discussed this time that changed since our last conversation. We did previously talk about the potential of a tree management software. And of the 3 companies we had proposals for, 2 of them had their own specific software. However, whether we chose to go with their software or not, we have we would require GIS data and an Excel spreadsheet
Right.
Like a
with the data
database.
for
Yeah.
the trees. So in the grant, we did not request funds for a software like that because at this time, we felt it could be completed in-house without a software. And if we do get sufficient funds, we would be able to consider if that's needed or beneficial in the future.
You're about to get busy, man.
About
Yes, I
to.
mean,
I'm joking.
So, yeah, we have licenses available for staff to be able to update it through and work within our GIS as it's built now.
And we have staff that do that as well for other infrastructure.
Right, yeah. It's just, we spent a lot of time speaking with our parks foreman to try and understand their current model or their current practices for documenting tree work, and trying to understand, like, would they actually find any of these proposed software products useful? How, are they more likely to adopt a brand-new program or something they're at least somewhat familiar with the town's GIS? So, yeah, that'll be something that we'll certainly consider when we're doing our interview process, if that's something that the consultants are offering, and definitely trying to get the input of our parks foreman, and also, because it's parks, but it's also highway department who's maintaining the trees in the town's right-of-ways. So making sure that it's something that they will practically use and is worth budgeting, not just within this grant, or what the grant funds are, but beyond that.
I have a weird question. You said the trees right-of-ways, but what about the RG&E right-of-ways?
No, so we can't, the grant funds
These are
RG&E
ju-
right-of-ways.
So like,
So there are RG&E easements, you mean?
that's what I mean, the easements, so when there are
We
lines
don't-
and they go and do the tree work?
We
who
don't have any authority on that.
But we
Well-
have no way to capture any of that either, huh? Like if they're taking down trees and they're part of that urban forest?
So
You mean if they're taking down trees and easements or on town land or
on
within the
town
right-of-way?
land? Yeah, if there's how a tree in a windstorm, I'm just
In
curious.
other words, it's been cited on the tree inventory, and now they took it down, and is there a way to know
I
that
think it's-
particular tree is gone?
I think it's worth discussions with RG&E, as I know, like, they have an arborist on staff. I personally have met with them, and the town interacts with them multiple times a year. So it would at least be worth asking for them to notify us if they're doing any work within the town right-of-way on trees.
So it's a good point, though. In emergency, when storms go through, you're not going to take the time to notify anybody. You're just going to do
No,
the
they're
work.
just going to fix
Yeah, but if they
whatever.
could
But after the
notify us
fact
afterwards that
even.
that happened, then
Right.
the town staff can at least go out and look at those trees and likely know the difference.
Maybe, but sometimes it's a contractor. It's not necessarily
It's
RG.
often a
Yeah,
contractor.
Yeah. I'm just trying to be polite.
No, please,
Yeah.
it's valid information.
Yeah.
But still, if there's some kind of, there was a referral to a contractor to send out to a particular location, somehow to have that all tie back in? I mean, they've got to know whether the work was done, if they're paying the contractor.
So like I
just-
said, I think it's worth conversations with
Yeah.
Arjuni. In the instance that there's emergency tree work, we are less likely to get notified even after the fact that that happened.
Yeah.
However, Arjuni does do maintenance on trees, under lines, around lines, and we have been notified before that they're going to do maintenance. We just haven't been provided with like how many trees or where, like
Yeah.
all the little details.
Right.
So it's worth a conversation, and worst case, we don't get more information than we currently get. Best case, we do.
Yeah.
This is ideally something that gets addressed in the forestry plan. You
Yeah.
know, so the inventory and assessment is just looking at those town right-of-ways and town mowed and maintained areas on town lands and town parks. So they'll be taking that initial assessment and inventory, the recommended actions, proposed planting sites, and then when they get into the forestry plan phase, that's where we can look at how do we improve communication between RG&E, utility companies, contractors, to ensure that they know when they're working on a town tree and can inform the appropriate people.
So when you spoke about current parks and, road facilities working with this new tracking or the result, the inventory, are you talking about for them to be able to, if they take down a tree, to go in and note this tree that had been cited has been taken down or has had work done on it?
So
So have
that
some interface?
If they're, or even just a form that they fill out, and then that gets passed on to our department if necessary, if they
To
go
enter
in
it.
and alter the identification information for that actual specific tree. Realistically, the hope is that it would give them an opportunity to better track which trees they're doing work with. Because right now, we don't have the trees identified. They just
Right.
have like a general area that they're doing work.
No, I understand that. I just
yeah.
meant, you got this tree inventory. If it's not then kept up with, it's, could
Well-
quickly become
Oh, sure.
obsolete.
Yep, and
Right.
that's part of why we wanted to have those discussions
Okay.
before even applying for the grant of what would be most useful for them to move forward.
I figured that's what you were saying. I just wanted to clarify that's what you
Please,
meant.
yeah. Yeah, if the committee members here aren't completely clear, I'm sure residents that are watching might not be completely clear, so, thank you. So that's what we have at this time for the town forestry plan information. When we find out about that grant, we'll give you an update, and eventually when the budget is passed for next year, we can give you an update with that too. Okay. So we'll move forward into the Pollinator garden sign information. Do you want to lead that one too?
Yeah, so I shared an initial draft. This was updated just today. Major changes being, or I should say, this is a draft of the sign that we would propose having at the community center gardens. So this is the sun garden, and there's a shade garden under this tree. That's the Penfield Community Center there. We also spoke with our parks foreman to get an understanding of where the ideal spot would be. I think we still need to kind of hammer out, how this will be mounted. We kind of agreed that it would, look nice at like a 45-degree angle or at some kind of angle where it's not just a flat
Okay.
sign. And if we can place it somewhere where it will minimize any disturbance to the garden, but also any, mowing practices of this area. And obviously, not in or near the right-of-way. And so I think we were looking at somewhere underneath or near the shade garden, facing the doors, but we'd also have to look at and make sure that we're not impacting the roots of the tree there. But again, that is highly dependent on how it's mounted and how deep the posts need to go. So that's the discussion on like the location. Any questions on?
What will the sign be of? Like, what material? Is it going to be
Oh, I'd have to look at,
wood or some form of what?
No, it wouldn't
Metal?
be wood. It's not metal. I believe it's some composite, some sort of durable plastic that's
Okay.
meant for outdoor signage. But that's also a discussion that we can have with Southpaw signs. Yeah, we can come back with you, we'll come back to that once we have a revised quote from them.
Do you
Yeah.
want to show the sign again?
Yeah. Sorry.
Can I, in terms of location?
Sure.
I don't ever see people kind of walking through that garden, and maybe they do, but have you considered having it over by the bike racks or, facing the gardens? Or, because you get a lot more foot traffic.
Well,
And I'm not saying that, I'm just throwing out ideas.
Sure.
Okay, I'm thinking that a sign would draw the foot traffic because, when you go out to places, I see a sign, I go up and read it. And so where maybe I would have just walked on by if there wasn't a sign. So that could, just to play the opposite thought on that.
I actually don't live very far from here, and I'll second Katie, is that when I take my daughter for a walk over there, I stay as far away from the circle as much as possible, just because there is a lot of traffic, car-wise, that goes through there, so.
And if it was placed away from the gardens, do you don't think it would be confusing for residents that, they're not seeing those kinds of plants where that sign is?
I think it's actually safer if you didn't plan it to where they have to cross traffic areas to read it. Even if you're putting it.
I agree with that.
Even if you're putting it near, this, I only live right around the corner from there. If you put it along a sidewalk or somewhere that's adjacent to the garden itself, it's a safe place to read while you can still view. I think if you're putting it in the center, then you're asking people to cross, especially kids if they're on their own. They're crossing traffic patterns. It's in the shade, so it's going to be hidden by the shade a lot of the time. So it's not going to be as visible as I think we might think it would be. That's just my thought.
So question, is there only one location you're putting the sign up, or is it multiple locations?
Right now, there's only one location. We do have a second pollinator garden at, at Willow Pond, but that's, less people go there.
So what you could do is you could put a little map on not like a stick figure
Like a
map, but
location map?
Yeah, kind of like you are here and you show a little circle and then you point on the map where the shade and the sunflowers or
So just adding a map.
Like a small
yeah,
location?
like a little key. And so wherever you put it, if it's on the other side of the street or other side of the thing,
Yeah.
you can just show it.
I think that's a reasonable accommodation to not having it right under the tree for all the reasons that they've mentioned, but you do want something to draw the attention of where to look for it.
But they-
Question that I
they-
haven't,
They still have to cross the street to go look at the actual flowers, but,
sure, but if they want to look at those flowers, they're going to do that anyway.
right.
They just know more, they're more likely to know the flowers are there, but still. I don't know if it's even viable, but would it be worth considering putting the sign on the side of the building then?
I was just about to say that the north side of the building, that little courtyard right there, right next to that entrance.
Could you
The
show
south-
us where that?
The south
It's
side of
on
the building?
other side.
Like that side where you enter,
Yeah, going
right?
towards the larger parking lot. Almost
Do
to
you mean on the back of the building?
Yep. That entrance, especially for the rec center, is used more often than the main.
Oh, the completely opposite
Yeah.
side, opposite
Okay.
parking lot?
I was trying to be clear if you actually meant the north side, that's all.
Yeah.
It's over here.
The other entrance, right,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
right
one,
there.
yeah.
and that little courtyard to the right
The
there.
only thing, it's so far away from the actual pollinator garden.
You'd be
So-
surprised that whenever our family goes there, this is actually the entrance we use more often.
Right, but it's just far away from the pollinator garden
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. I thought they were going to be planning a second one.
There's two already.
Oh, is there one
Yeah,
going
I
back here
think
too?
if people are using that
No.
entrance, they may read it, but, I think we have to look at go back to what is our goal?
Yeah, I'd want-
Do
I
we
would-
want
I would
people
want
to
it
look
here.
at this garden and get information on it? I'm not sure if that's what our original thought was, to say, hey, it's here, certainly for one thing,
Yeah.
but then to know more about it. And if we want people to be, that's the entrance I use too, first of all, I will say that. But in using that entrance, I am not going to walk through the building and go out the other side to ever look at the garden.
Also, I'd be hesitant to put something on this side of the building because with the current considerations for Plan Forward, there's considerations for renovating this area. And I wouldn't want to this year put something on the building on that side and then have to move it soon. That's my biggest hesitance with that, but also the consideration of, I think part of the point of the sign is to both educate residents, but also to let them know that that's there. So I would personally lean toward having it on the side of the building that the garden is actually on.
Yeah, 'cause when I'm reading those signs, I do read those signs when I see them. I want to see what I'm reading about.
Yeah, so that you're like me, then you go up to see a sign, you go
Yeah.
read it, and you want. So the thing about the, enticing children, like to cross a traffic area, the parking, if we could go back to where the parking in general for the library is, I mean, you have to cross through traffic area to get to the library entrance,
No,
don't you?
No,
How not?
you go
go
through
to
the
the
parking
sidewalk.
lot and up the side, unless you're talking about going through a parking lot.
I'm talking about going through the parking
Well,
lot. I'm
everywhere.
talking about going through the parking lot. I mean, there's still going to be some traffic wherever you go.
Sure.
That's where, I mean, frankly, I'm not a Penfield resident. Is there a true traffic safety concern?
Yeah.
In this area? Like,
Because it's not only in and out for parking, it's also in and out for, well, during the school day, the kids park at the back of the library parking lot. It's also a drop-off and pickup spot, so it's
That circle
people just
gets-
coming in and circling around.
there are a lot of
you know.
vehicles, but I would assume that the vehicles are going slowly and and even if they don't
Yeah, but-
stop for pedestrians, a resident would understand that I should wait until there are no, I would assume.
I guess was the
And
point I was trying to make is
You can
that,
very clearly see any vehicles that are coming your way, right? Like, there's not a line of sight issue.
right.
Yeah.
I guess I was just trying to point out that, in terms of walking through grandchildren through many parking lots, or, so that's my
Yeah.
thing with children is wherever I am, it's like we have to be aware of traffic, and even if it's to say, okay, that we're going to cross this area, I didn't see it as, well, that's personally my view, escorting them, that it's any more dangerous than getting them through the parking lots.
So people drive in the entrance and they either go around to the parking lot or they go around the loop and go back out. So if you had it right where they drive in on that little grassy part across from the sidewalk there,
There.
they would see it driving in, so they at least would be able to see it, even if they're going in a different entrance.
Then they would at least know the sign is there to look.
Okay.
That's what I would do, but
But there's not as much, there's very little foot traffic there.
That little crosswalk right there, that's where we usually go to, just to,
Yeah, as I say, I thought there was a lot, like, there's a fair amount of walking traffic there. Now, we wouldn't just plop it in the middle of that grassy area. Ideally, we would look to put it to an edge that's not right against the sidewalk, so maybe closer to the building or something. But that, I think the input that we need at minimum from this committee is if the committee would rather it be in the loop, in the circle, near the garden, or probably on this south side of the building somewhere. And then we would go back and work with the parks to determine.
And point for sure,
exactly where
south
to
side
put
of
it.
building, just because I'm directionally challenged.
This
Can
is
you-
the south side of the building, this entrance.
That entrance,
Also
okay.
consider, again, in Plan Forward for the town, there is considerations for renovating this building for all of it to be the library. Like, those are considerations that are happening, so rec wouldn't would potentially not be part of this building, assuming all of that moves forward as it's currently looking to. So the back entrance may not be the main entrance for people, like if they're just going to the library. So there are future changes expected, hoped for, in this area. And that's why I would say we would at this time be hoping for this committee to give us an idea if you prefer it in the little circle near the gardens or on that south side of the building near the I'd say deeper parking lot, for reference. And then the staff would work together to determine the best location for mowing, for viewability, like all of those things. We can work on that. And then hopefully we'd also like input on what the actual sign looks like. And if it's not next to the actual gardens, I think it's worth considering putting a little location map on, as we discussed.
I think if it ends up in the circle, the angle should be facing into the circle so that you can see that it is an informational sign from across the street.
Do you mean facing out of the circle then? Angled so outside of the circle you can see it?
So when you're outside of the circle, you can see it, so
Right.
angled.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So if you're in
Initially, you
the
said it would
circle,
be-
it'd be facing out,
Yeah.
okay.
Facing traffic.
facing traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you said it would be facing the community center, and
Yeah, so that would be,
Which
let's
is
say it's
both,
here.
actually.
The information would be facing the community center, be
Got it.
facing
Which
that
would
way. Which would
also
be
face vehicles.
If you look
The
at our
road.
little signs, I guess, I'm picturing it would be against, here's the pollinator garden to the back with the sign angled
Yes.
this way facing.
Ideally blocking is the.
Yes?
So you'd be looking at the sign and the garden would be behind it.
Yes, that's what I'm picturing.
The shade garden would be behind it.
Yes.
Okay. Just for a idea, could you guys raise your hands if you're interested in it being closer to the community center and not in the circle? Okay, could you raise your hand if
I'm the
you want
only
it in the
one.
circle? Could you raise your hand if you don't care? Great, that's super helpful. Thanks.
haven't-
We
I'll-
we haven't made any decisions, to be clear.
None whatsoever.
No.
I just want information from
Input,
you.
yeah.
What about inside the community center? No?
If there was a courtyard, but there isn't.
Okay.
Okay,
No.
that
We
looks
want
like
it
no
outside.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, did you want to look at the sign more at this point?
Yeah. Main updates were to add this join Penfield's Pollinator Pathway with a QR code, bringing you to the Pollinator Pathway webpage.
Well, you just added that in, because I don't see it on the.
Yes, yeah, this is
Yeah.
I like
on
that.
it. All of the plants here are plants that are in the gardens. There's two different, this is the shade garden scheme, and this is the sunny garden scheme. So the one thing I messed up is that I had cardinal flower, nicely blue cardinal flower. So I had to swap that out.
I was going to say something, but
Yes, yeah, thanks.
I had no idea.
And yeah, just threw in some little pollinators throughout. I felt like there was too many monarchs before, so added some different ones.
There's never too many.
Variations.
So the company that's going to be doing this, I mean, it's very bright and colorful now. You would be looking at them, what the durability of this sign as far as the color retention goes?
Yes.
Okay.
Will you share this new one with us?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
What
36
size?
by 24.
36, so small.
I like
You're
the,
saying small?
So that's,
It's the size of like a regular plan that we get.
yeah.
That's a good size.
What
What's
were you going to say,
big?
Katie? Oh,
Oh, okay.
she was going to say
It's going to cost a lot more.
Yeah. It'll block out the whole garden.
Yeah. We don't want the sign
Shade
bigger than the garden.
Yeah.
So Matt put this together based on a National Parks pollinated garden sign. He referenced that, I believe, previously with you guys. Did anyone have any Any considerations for changes? Any comments, feedback?
I think if you add the "you are here" like kind of map, that'll fill in that white space in the middle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I like the shadows of the animals that you have there, and either add more or spread it out if you're not going to do the map. It just felt too far
Well, and-
over.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, while I fully support this addition of support the purchase of locally grown pesticide-free fruits and vegetables, it doesn't seem to be like,
Pertinent to the
as,
pollinator
I
garden?
feel like we could have a different statement there that would be more relevant to native pollinator gardens in your own yard.
Maybe, yeah, consider,
Maybe the
Adding
committee
these-
members could provide any thoughts, like
Any revised
sample
language.
sentences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't kill your natural pollinators.
Right?
Well,
that's
minimize
the
or
whole
eliminate the use of pesticides in your yard. I mean, that.
Something like that.
That helps
Well,
with
that's
that
in
part.
there, right?
Yeah, it has, that's what she's talking about. It says minimize or eliminate the use of pesticides in your yard, right?
Yeah, that's.
I
the
like
second
that one. That's great.
That's in there. Which
Yeah,
one are you
it's the
talking
one
about?
below it.
The
It's
one below,
Oh.
support the
Oh.
purchase of locally grown pesticide-free fruits and vegetables.
And that is
It's
great.
valid, it's just less relevant to pollinators
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah.
well, you could say something, if you want to say, support your local, check out your local nurseries for the pollinator plants.
So I would
I'm just
say
brainstorming, so
No,
I
no,
can't,
I get it.
can't actually read it, but
If, I would say,
I forgot my
please look
laptop.
at this and look at, oh man, look at the wording, and if there's any bullet points that you're like, maybe this thought would be better, send it along.
So what about something
Not to the
about,
whole group, so it's not like we're talking offline, just to be clear,
just send it
because we're
to,
not supposed to do that. Just send it to Matt and I.
okay, okay.
And we'll either talk about it at next meeting, or if it's something that doesn't need to be talked about, we'll resolve it on
Can
our own,
we-
but likely we'll talk about
I
it at the
have
next
a
meeting.
favor to ask for this. Can we add in like a mosquito deterring native plant? Because mosquitoes have been awful this year, and I know my neighbors are all complaining. They're like, we're going to get Mosquito Joe or one of those.
Do you guys know mosquito deterring plants that aren't likely to take over your garden? Because I only know ones that'll take over my garden.
I know.
That's the
I
problem
have mint in
with
mine, and
those.
that helps, and it does take over. It's taking over a lot of space.
Unless you have it like in a container.
It's not.
Yeah, I have,
Grown everywhere, but it also deters mice, which is
yeah, I have
good.
lemon balm for.
And they're like
same
right
reason.
around my house. Bee balm is one that's really good, and it's a pollinator plant. I don't know, just suggestions. Taking over, I don't know.
I was going to suggest maybe something about not mowing during certain times of year, especially when, like, for example, certain pollinators are trying to reproduce.
Or raking all your leaves.
yeah,
That's a
leave
big
the
one.
leaves would be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a big deal. Like, don't rake before, I think it's middle or early May or something, right?
I think that would still fall under provide undisturbed habitat in your yard.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't, so I think this line more says like natural areas with dead plants and woody debris, but there could be language, I could remove the third bullet of that locally grown fruits and vegetables and add in language to that,
Like,
provide undisturbed habitat that says,
An example of that.
delay your first
delay
mow and
mowing.
raking
Right.
Yeah.
in the spring until, I don't remember when it's.
Right, so
I usually wait.
delete the third, and under the fourth, add more information about, don't mow this, or don't rake the leaves yet, something
Or
like
the
that.
benefit of.
I mean, don't cut your
mowing.
twigs off
And the
yet,
benefit
just
of
that.
delaying raking. maybe.
Yes, I like
Delay
So
that.
rather
raking.
rather than be
So you
a
could-
don't rake, don't mow, it could be
Yeah,
a
don't
Just in
clip,
the
don't clip the,
spring,
to this time of year for this reason.
Yeah,
Or, and
I like that.
reduce outdoor lighting. That would be another good option.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you still want those ideas in an email? Or if they've been-
I don't think we need them in an email because
Yeah, I think
of the minutes
I've
that
got
we
a good
have.
idea, and I can send a revised
Okay.
form, and we can say whether or not it's good at the next meeting.
Unless you come up with something that hasn't been discussed tonight. Yeah, I think we're good. Cool. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the Pollinator Garden sign? Okay. Then we'll move into new business. On our agenda, it's titled 2027 Native Tree Giveaway Order. We wanted to explain that based on last year pushing the tree giveaway and the EV show to a later date and doing the potting of the plants to help them survive since we got them from Monroe County Soil and Water, we subsequently were talking with the staff there and asked if they'd consider pushing their sale later in the year, as we've been getting frosts later in the year. So across the board, we thought it may be beneficial for the plants that they're selling to not be planted right before a frost,
Yeah.
which is what essentially has been happening if people plant them when they get them. And/or if there's another option with that, subsequently they let us know that there's an option that we could purchase directly with them so that we could get the plants delivered at a later date.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. With that, the catch is they wouldn't be dipping the roots in Terrasorb gel, which is what they currently do. That's basically a gel that helps the roots keep water, or helps water stay, keeps them moist essentially,
Okay.
as they need to be over a longer time period. So we looked at the cost of that to get ourselves to be able to do that, and it's a reasonable expense. So talking more with them, we're at the point where we currently have a date that's been discussed with the group for the EV show, and that would be May 1st. So we would have a potential delivery date for that Friday before, if this committee is supportive of us doing that purchase. And then we also wanted to talk about specific species, because if we are to do that purchase, we need to work with them now, Monroe County Soil and Water, to help to determine the prices and what we would be purchasing.
Okay.
So Matt sent out a list of both trees and shrubs that we would be considering, based on what was on the list in previous years and also previous discussions. So he pulled that up right now, and he's scrolling through it. If it's a size where no one can read it, please tell us so we can try and make it bigger.
Just a bit bigger. That's my poor eyes. I just wanted to ask, since, would we still be potting them like Katie?
The goal would to be not to pot them.
Okay, because I was going to say, I didn't know if you would
situation.
need the gel if you were
Not to-
potting them.
Not to
Okay.
take the job away from John and Katie.
Okay.
But we would be reducing expenses if we're not potting them,
Yes,
and time
and
investments.
labor, yeah.
And that was also part of the reason we had the discussion with Soil and Water. Yes, there's the benefits of planting them after frosts are done, but also to reduce the workload.
So we've dipped in gel before when we've handed them out bare root. I don't know if any of us knew that they had previously had gel, but we would get them, our process was to have a bucket and we would dip them in gel and then put them in the baggie
That
to
had to not be in
distribute.
the last 10 years, right?
I can't remember
It was
what years
before
it was. It was, quite a bit ago. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that we
I don't-
have done, it wasn't a huge cumbersome
Yeah,
process.
relatively easy, it seems like.
Do you recall if you were doing that the morning of the giveaway, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, they would pick them up, well, we would get them ready to hand out all bagged, so yes, we were doing it the morning of
I
the
don't see why we
giveaway.
couldn't do it the night before, or the day before.
Oh,
like the
sure, I'm
county's
just,
doing
you're
it
just
way ahead.
asking when we were in the habit of doing it, and that's when it was.
Yeah. So, okay, so it sounds like that's a viable option. based on the current feedback I'm hearing. Maybe we can go through this plant list and see if there's any that you guys don't like at all, any that you guys love, so that we can take things off and star them so we can work with Monroe County Soil and Water. The price per unit that's on there was pulled from previous catalogs that they had, so it's not the price that it's going to be this year. It's just a consideration. So going from the top, there's American hazelnut. This is a shrub, and it gets to a max height of 10 feet. It's previously been highly rated by EECC in the plant sale survey. It's not deer resistant, but it is adapted to well-drained soils. Next is the black chokeberry. That is a max height of 15 feet. It is also a shrub. It's moderately deer resistant, adapted to varying soil types, and it's on the town's native species guide. And you'll see a theme with these of whether or not they're on the town's native species guide, like the same considerations for each item.
Are the
They
pink ones
are-
the native ones?
No, so all of these are native.
All of these are native.
Just
Perfect.
some of them are on our guide
Right,
specifically.
and our guide is not a comprehensive list of everything that is native. But if we choose something that is on our list, then we can say like, hey, if you want to know more about this plant,
Yeah.
go to the list. So we can basically cross-advertise for
I'm
the
looking
sale
at them, right.
and using the list. Whereas if we choose something that's off it, then, we can still tell people that we have a native plant list, but they won't have information in the list to look at.
For that
Of-
species.
Of those on the bushes list, the winterberry, when I looked that up, you click on it, you could get more information on it. It said that you needed some males of the species somewheres
Just for it to flower.
to produce maybe the berries.
Okay,
So but just as an aside, so
sure.
Some people don't want the berries.
it could be.
It's a mess or attracts too many.
So next is the 9-bark. That's also a shrub. It's a max of 10 feet, moderately deer resistant, adapted to varying soil types. It's on the town's native species guide. You go back over, sorry. The winterberry is a max of 10 feet, moderately deer resistant, adapted to well-drained soils, and on the town's native species guide. So those are the shrubs.
No, there's more shrubs,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Oh, there's more. I didn't see the
Those
others.
4 were shrubs. Next is the American plum, which is a tree. It's a max height of 24 feet, not deer resistant, adapted to well or moderately drained soils.
Oh, it's actually fruit producing, right?
Yes.
Okay, I see that.
The red mulberry is a max height of 65 feet. Most often that's shorter, and it was only available in the wild berry mix pack in previous sales. So there's not currently pricing available. It is not reliably deer resistant. It's adapted to varying soils, and it is on the town's native species guide. Both of those were trees. The downy serviceberry is a shrub. It's a max height of 36 feet. It was only available in the native flowering tree and shrub multi-pack previously. It's moderately deer resistant, prefers well-drained soils, and it's on the town's native species guide. The nanny berry, a max height of 35 feet as well. It's not in the catalog, so we don't have pricing considerations at this time, but it is moderately deer resistant and prefers well-drained soils. It's on the town's native species guide. And then the last 2 are trees. The pawpaw is max height of 20 feet. It's not in the catalog at this time, or has not been in the catalog previously. It is highly deer resistant. It prefers poorly drained soils and is on the town's native species guide. And then the American hornbeam is the last tree on the list, and that is the max height of 40 feet. It's not in the catalog previously, and it is moderately deer resistant and prefers poorly drained soils, so wet feet. So with that, we've given you some options for both shrubs as well as trees. Part of the consideration is, do we want to go with 2 trees again, like we've done in the past? Do we want to do 2 shrubs? Do we want to do 1 of each? All items up for discussion.
There were a lot of feedback of people not taking tree, who was there with me?
Oak trees.
Yeah,
That was
so
a-
that was
The oak, yeah,
another
okay.
major consideration in putting together this list, is that none of these trees get to more than 50 feet.
They're not huge.
Whereas like, yeah, the red oak gets to like 100 feet. So that was, going forward, we want to choose trees that are moderately sized. And then so many of these are shrubs, and they're relatively large shrubs though, so they can get to a bigger size, and, you know, but ultimately we wanted some, you know, a mix of trees and shrubs that weren't going to dominate or.
So is the idea to pick one type of shrub and one type of tree?
that's
We're
what
not,
I'm
we're not,
asking.
no,
It's up
sorry,
to
sorry.
us.
Yeah.
It's all up to us.
It's all tough. No pressure.
We're not,
Choices.
we're not choosing anything tonight.
No,
No,
but
okay,
just
we're
to
just asking for
start to
input right
think
now.
about it, yeah.
So like I said, we're looking for the committee to inform us on your preferences, considering, do we want to do 2 trees this year, 2 shrubs? Do we want one of each? That's information that we need going forward, to consider after we get pricing.
Yeah.
Also, the other item to discuss tonight is, do you prefer any of these or not like any of these? Because that also, if you don't like if you don't like certain ones of these, it's not worth us getting the pricing.
I like the pawpaw. I've got one in my yard. It's great.
Yeah. It doesn't attract animals. So my whole thing is all the fruit-bearing ones, which I love, but they attract rodents and things. Although I have bird feeders that attract those too. I don't know. You can't win.
I think that there should be at least one shrub. I mean, personally, I would probably, but you know, go for 2 shrubs, but at least one shrub for people that have, I'm thinking of my yard in terms of any tree. I could not fit any tree into an established yard
So-
that I have, mine personally. So to give people, you know, the options that maybe have a yard like mine that is not going to accommodate another
So
tree.
you're thinking at least one shrub that is on the smaller side, that 10 to 15 feet.
Yeah,
I like
probably.
the idea of having one shrub, one tree. Do you guys think that? I think that's a great idea.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I like the red mulberry in that, you know, it is fruiting. I do like that it's fruiting, and
I love the fruiting trees. I just don't want them in my yard.
and it's
Then you say
fruiting
shrub.
that people and critters can enjoy, depending
It's
on
true.
how you want to.
And the plum too. I have peach tree in my yard, and the squirrels get to it before I do.
Well, don't they always?
Yes.
I think
like the
if we-
winterberry and the
whatever we
ninebark.
choose should be, I would prefer them to be moderately deer resistant.
Yeah.
Because to have people take these and plant them and have them being eaten. you
You're
know,
right.
And there's
We have a
tons
lot
of
of
deer
deer.
around, you know, they decimate everything. So it would be very, you know, it wouldn't be very,
User-friendly?
yeah, I guess you could say
The
that.
other is the varying soils. I like the idea of, you know, varying soils because it opens it up to, you know, people with different, I don't know, I have clay, but I
Yeah,
don't
we
know
do
what
have a lot
everybody
of
else
different
has.
soils. What's the, can you scroll up to the 9-bark? Or down? Is it a deer or is it moderately deer? Okay. I like the 9-bark and winterberry for shrubs.
I like having a tree so that we can promote the New York State, you know, millions of trees by 20.
Yeah.
25 million trees.
Especially if
There
we're
it is.
pursuing this tree forestry. I know it's not
Right.
part of it, but it's still,
I mean, ideally.
we're a tree city.
We're a tree town, yeah.
Well, and ideally, we can, this year, I think, would be probably right at the beginning of if we move forward with the tree inventory next year. So we may not be ready to share a ton of information, but we can let people know that's coming if it's within the budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're also a tree city, so it's always relevant.
Yeah, so it should be a shrub and a tree.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I don't mind if it's not deer resistant, honestly, because deer need food too, and a lot of these trees, if you get them to survive, will provide plenty of food for the deer.
Yeah, as long as they're not eating the actual tree to kill it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
we-
while it's growing, you just have to protect it.
We have to protect it. We put
Yep.
a little fence around all of them, just so they don't eat
We
it.
have our native pollinator garden brochure, which has great information on how to protect your native plants.
We can have those
hand
available.
those out.
That would be a good thing to, point out when we're handing out the shrubs. Here's how you protect
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's true.
your fledgling tree.
Then I'll
And
ask-
pointing people, sorry, Sarah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Just pointing people to the native species guide, I think, is a priority. Although, is it possible to add? I mean, it was great. We haven't printed it because it's so, there's so many links and it,
So the brochure is meant to be something you can hand to somebody.
Yeah.
And it has a QR code on there, so you can go to the native plant
She's
list.
talking about the native plant list. Can we add any of the plants on this to it?
Is that what you're asking?
the town's native species guide,
Yes.
is that the digital one that's on the website that you created? Or is that the
Yes.
brochure?
Yeah, so there's a native plant list,
Yeah.
which is on the town website.
I'm
And
ask-
then there's
yeah.
a version of the brochure on the Pollinator Pathway page that is printer-friendly, but it's essentially all the same information that's,
Well,
but they're separate resources.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'm,
not a plant guide. There's a native plant list,
That's what I
and then there's a native pollinator garden brochure,
So you-
which has a link, or it has both a URL and a QR code to bring you to the native plants list.
We're saying guide because you wrote town's native species guide,
Okay.
to clarify.
Sure. Right. So, Katie, what are we asking
Yeah.
here?
so the question is, if we were to go with the plum,
Sure.
For example.
it's not on the town's native species guide, but I do think that that's really great to be able to point people back to the resources that have been created. Could those be added? Is that possible?
Added in which way?
So adding those species so the formatting doesn't really allow for many more species. Like I'd basically have to take a species out to add one more species in. We can always tell people that they can look at that to look for more native species. It will never be, like I said earlier, a comprehensive list of everything that's native to Penfield.
Of course.
So we can give them information about the species that we're giving to them on that day in the same way that we have of like the planting guide and all the information there. But personally, I don't think it's necessary to add, like we've just found these species that aren't on our list. I don't think we need to, add them in. Because, it would,
So no, it's not simple
it's
to-
not, no.
to do that.
No.
Okay. So I would lean towards ones that are on the guide.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Even if that is counter to your previous statement of preferring red mulberry and that's not on the list.
Oh, it is on the list.
Oh, I thought it wasn't. Maybe I mixed them up.
I pointed to the plum,
Oh, okay.
but I prefer the mulberry.
I mixed them up.
Which of the bushes are on the town's native species guide?
Not the hazelnut, but black chokeberry, ninebark, and winterberry
They all
are all
okay.
on there. And then,
Hazelnut was one that we tried to get in previous years because the committee requested it, but they ran
It's a
out.
good one, yeah.
downy serviceberry is, and nannyberry is also on the guide.
The nannyberry is really pretty.
Well, ultimately, as long as there's one shrub and one tree, I don't, and anything else is acceptable to me in terms of the individual plants.
Okay, so looking, or based on our discussion moving forward, we will lean toward one shrub, one tree for consideration when we have pricing, and we'll aim for adapting to varying soils, and then consider the different conversations about the different plants individually. Because it sounds like that was a consensus among the committee members.
I think that, yeah.
So at this point, I think it's reasonable that we get pricing for all of them on the list and then go from there. Okay, seeing no one's saying no, we'll do that.
Proceed.
Well, Katie, were you saying no to if it's not on the
Oh, sorry.
guide?
I mean, it's a
I think that will be one of the highest weights. I think the second highest is maybe deer resistance. And then the third highest weight would be diversity of soil
And like having a height diversity, probably. So like if we're getting a shrub, trying to get a smaller shrub compared to getting a tree. I
Yeah.
think they mentioned that.
Yeah. But we'll consider all of those.
Yeah.
You'll need a computer program to factor it all together.
Excel, yeah, we got it. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do for most of these things, so.
I mean, it's very possible that they come back and say that half of these aren't available,
Yep. And that's part of
and
why,
that'll make the decision relatively easy.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Or maybe one's crazy expensive.
Sure. To clarify, they haven't really given us a clear answer on when they need our order in by. So I'm going to give this information to them tomorrow, and if they give us a pricing list, early next week and say that they need it before our next meeting, we'll probably go ahead and order the plants before consulting ECC again. But with the understanding that it will be one of these plants, or two of the plants listed here. Everyone's in favor of that, correct?
Okay.
And then please be of the understanding if we use funds to purchase trees this year for next year, like put in the order, then that will likely delay our purchase of the sign until next year. At our last meeting, we did talk about not putting the sign up until next year so that it would be ideally in conjunction with this Arbor Day celebration, so it can be
Okay.
publicized with that as well. So it really wouldn't affect anything other than budgetary constraints.
Okay.
So you can do a bigger sign next year is what you're saying?
No,
But we still have to order plants next year.
yeah,
And I should say that I wouldn't say it's likely, it's possible. Because I
Yes.
think our plant orders have typically been between like 250 to 350. And our budget is, I think, 950 or
Yeah.
maybe around 900. So, yeah, we would have over $500 to spend on a sign, which I think is possible. But, yeah, we'll have to,
I was just,
priority right now is certainly to order these plants. And then we'll look at if we need to roll over funds or somehow,
what we would do with the
figure out what we do with the rest.
Let me throw another question out for you then. We have typically gotten 100 of whatever, I think. Was that the numbers?
Typically, we've gotten 100 of each,
100 of each, right.
and we've
So,
gotten two kinds.
in two kinds, right. So what do we think about that quantity? We don't,
think
previous
it's great.
years, we've had bunches left. This past year, they went pretty well.
In the last 3 years, we haven't had more than 10 left.
Okay,
And that's only 1 year we had 10 left.
okay.
The other years, we ran out.
So my question is, do we want to increase the number at all?
So I would recommend, and I'm open to discussion, but I would recommend we don't increase the number at this time because we're like barely running out.
I got you.
Okay,
It's like
okay,
we run out like right at 12 at our 2-hour mark. Matt and I
Okay.
clean up, or whoever cleans up, and then we go.
okay, so then that's an okay 2-hour mark. Okay,
Yeah. So
Just
is there
wanted-
more
just
discussion?
bringing it up.
That's just my anecdotal background.
I like keeping a little bit of scarcity in there so people have to come early and
Yeah.
get in line.
Get in and get out.
Supply and demand, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, so we'll move forward with that on our side. I don't think there's any other items at this time for the native tree giveaway. And we'll move into information about the spotted lantern fly monitoring program.
Yeah, so that was the native tree order with Monroe County Soil and Water. We also partner with Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation District for spotted and lantern fly monitoring. For the past couple of years, they've set up traps in Penfield. There's one in Sherwood Fields, and there's one in Channing H. Philbrook Park. And they're obviously looking for and monitoring the spread of spotted and lanternfly. We have not found any in Penfield to date. There's been a population in Greece for some time, but they did recently find spotted and lanternfly in Irondequoit. So it's the first time that Monroe County Soil and Water have seen it there. And so it's on the move. And so we're asking for folks to keep an eye out for it throughout Penfield and the surrounding areas. And you can report it to Monroe County and Soil and Water.
Kill it.
And kill it, yes, and its eggs. But currently, they're in this like molting phase where you can see them. There's also handouts that you guys have. But they're in this molting stage where they'll be kind of moving from this late stage nymph and then transitioning to their adult phase. So that's what you're going to be looking for during this time of year.
And if you see them, smush them
Yes.
as much as possible.
Is there a particular tree or vegetation that you would see them on, or are they just?
Tree of heaven is a very common species that they gravitate to.
But you can also see them, I mean, there's also been eggs on the back of signs before, like.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate in New York State. I know that's accurate in Pennsylvania. So like, I mean, it's not this time of year is not the stage for the eggs, but I mean, yeah. So they do like the tree of, tell me again, tree of heaven the most.
Which is also
Is
invasive.
my understanding.
Devilishly invasive, yeah.
No, kill those, it's okay. Do we have one for Phragmites too?
Isn't there a moth that looks like this thing as well? Similar looking moth?
Not that I know of off the top of my head.
It looks a bit like a leopard moth, I mean, in those pictures, but those are whiter. But the spots are kind of the same. They were all over DC. The adults were flying all over.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Those red back wings are
Yeah, the
pretty
red black
distinct.
wings stand out.
Yeah.
So we're checking to see if we have them in town. How long does that last again, that program?
Through the fall. So we'll continue. The traps will be out through, I believe, the end of October.
Does anyone have any other questions at this time?
So if you see them, kill them, squash their eggs, report them.
Yes.
Who do we report them to?
Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation
Okay.
District.
And it might be worthwhile, if anybody sees them, for those folks that might be out there listening to us, take a photo of where you actually saw it, so you can identify it more clearly.
And the location.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And I think October, they really start laying the eggs. And that's the time to get these suckers.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
it's the best time to take care of them.
And with that, if you see them, whether you're in Penfield or somewhere else, please still squish them and report them. So, then I think it's reasonable we can move forward to upcoming events. We've continued to have on our list the Home Improvement Resource Workshop. The last one at this time is August 24th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. I believe this is by Colored Penfield Green, and they'll both be educating you about home improvement resources like the HIP grant, among other things, and then I believe they're also giving out, is it?
Weatherization.
Home efficiency?
Yeah, weatherization kits, yep.
And that's provided from NYSERDA, or provided to them from NYSERDA, that they're handing out. Do you have more?
I do, yeah. So we have 16 people registered for this class. It's gaining in enthusiasm, I think, and we'll be running the 3 more classes, October, November, and December. So I'll provide dates later.
And I believe people have come to the town to help them assist with the application as well. So it is helping get information about that HIP grant out. Then we have the pharmaceutical waste collection event that is at East Rochester Wegmans. August 15th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. As we don't specifically have a pharmaceutical waste collection, we're providing the information for that one since it's nearby. There's no appointment required for that. Then we have the municipal hazardous household hazardous waste collection at the DPW on September 19th from 7:45 a.m. to 12 p.m. and an appointment is required for that.
I already signed up. I'm so excited.
That's great.
Get rid of those paint cans.
And you can sign up for that through the county's website for Eco Park. So, my understanding is that appointments fill up, so sign up as soon as you can if you're interested. And then like we said previously, it's not on our list, but we did talk about the EV car show and the Arbor Day celebration, and speaking with that group, the plan is for it to be May 1st this year.
Okay,
Well, this coming year. So May 1st, 2027.
great.
So if you don't currently have anything on your calendar for
I
that
already
day,
put it on there.
please block it off so that you can come.
Yes, yes.
Then, currently, there's no other new business on the agenda, but I believe John had something he wanted to speak about.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And this did not fall under the request from the town board. However, just as some background, the EECC had some great ideas with regards to donations of trees and/or options for that. And Roy had the opportunity to come on in as a community member and talk about supporting it as well. And it met with, frankly, overwhelming support. The idea here is to create a program, and like some of the other towns, I'll start by saying the bad news is we would not be able to take actual donations of plants, of trees or shrubs. However, there are other communities that have created a program where people are able to donate cash in order to have the trees planted in designated locations. And I think the idea of the EECC is a great one, and the board has, on behalf of the board, I am asking the EECC, it's kind of appropriate since we were talking about the native tree giveaway, to do a couple of things. First, come up with trees that this committee believes would be appropriate for the type of plantings we're looking at. There are obviously other important players in this from the town perspective, planning, DPW, and parks, and making sure that we do it the right way. There's also some thoughts about, okay, can we create, for example, a memorial garden? How do we work that through? Again, that's not even at an early stage, that's just concept. But it's getting the people engaged. So the first thought would be asking the EECC to come up with some ideas for trees so that we can figure out costs. This will obviously be something that would be more expensive than the
Just a regular donation?
Exactly, the giveaway, because the idea is in perpetuity, for as long as the plant is alive to help move it along. And then the second is if people are interested in this board, you don't have to answer today, but if anybody's interested, it may require some separate meetings to meet with the real workers when we're going through this to come up with an idea so we can create a solid resolution that can keep the plan going in the future. And I'll use this as an example. One of our neighboring towns has very different setup, but they have a canopy plan, so they're keeping their trees in canopies. Our community is obviously different, but we have some advantages. We have more opportunities in some of our spaces to use this, in addition to maybe around some of our roads where the town controls it. So we'd really value your input for locations and then also species that will work with that idea.
Okay.
And so we're moving forward. It's been fun.
So in this donation for the amount that would, because we know when we've planted trees in a grove before, they really need to be watered. Is that including the idea?
I'll kind of chime in. So So you're talking about when we planted seedlings, the bare root trees in the
Yes.
grove? This program would not be for bare root trees.
Okay. Right.
Bare root trees have a 1 in 10
Right.
survival rate. That's not
But
what
even
town staff would
so-
even be supportive of.
But even so, I imagine a small tree still has to be watered till it takes.
Yes, so we have standards for that, and realistically, out of the forestry plan, that will also reference standards. And ideally, with the forestry plan and the tree inventory, will end up coming out of that with a planting plan for the whole town. However, I think what John at this time is asking for is, as residents that live here, use the areas, use the parks, whatever, where are places that you think might be appropriate for a memorial garden or an arboretum?
Okay.
Where do you think would be places that would benefit from having trees that may not be for memorial and just have trees planted? Every time that the town Parks Department does plant trees, they stake them, they put on watering bags, like, it's a whole thing. And as we're moving forward with the tree inventory, those trees would also be included in that. Whether they're planted now or later, we would still take that information and maintain them.
So that's not going to be
So it's not gonna
included
be
in
like
a
that.
cost of the donation of the tree?
The
The town
donation-
would be willing to take, because that's going to be more trees.
So
to-
my understanding at this time is the cost consideration, and we still need to flesh it out more, but that's part of why we're starting with trees that the committee members would recommend for donation. The cost of the tree itself, we're just finishing up a meeting right now. You can come and sit if you'd like to. It's the Energy Environmental Conservation Committee. So we are looking for what the tree would cost individually. That would be a 2 to 3 inch caliper tree that's 6 to 8 feet tall. That's the standard of what all of the trees that we plant in town. The cost of the water bag, the cost of stakes.
Okay.
And it would have to be fleshed out if we would consider the cost of staff time to plant.
That's what I'm,
That, we
okay.
don't know at this point,
Okay.
because we don't even know what trees we'd be planting.
Okay, just asking.
And then
just,
if
you
it
know.
was for part of a memorial, we would also consider the cost of a plaque if a plaque's going to be included. So that's why I'm saying there may be different pricing with that.
Okay,
Yeah. So that's the beginning of what John's asking at this time, to my understanding, is can the committee members, whether it's part of this meeting or a separate meeting with staff, consider trees that we would want to be on a list that people can pick from, so that we can look at pricing and have that for like donation amounts? And then can this group look at potential places in town for a memorial arboretum or garden, and/or just planting locations that you think would benefit from trees? As we move forward with other plans in town, we will have some more ideas of locations for planting, but that's just where we are right now.
what about that grove where we're talking about the bare root trees that were planted that didn't make it
Rothfuss
as a
Park.
potential?
Sure.
Was Rothfuss Park, I think?
I think that's worth consideration. I know there's a planned expansion for the parking lot, one of the parking lots, but I don't remember which one, so I don't know if that goes into that area at this time.
Okay.
Either way, as we move forward doing plantings, we are considering along that path around Rothfuss Park, ideally to provide shade in the future.
Oh, I like that. That's a good idea.
And that's just something we're already looking into
Okay.
and have been moving forward with the plantings for our Arbor Day celebrations.
Right.
So, does anyone have any more questions at this time for that? Or that you want to ask John while he's here?
Feel free to ask me now or email me. Again, we just want to get it moving. Everybody thinks it's a good idea. We just need to make sure that the details are down. So to Sarah's point, if it's in a park versus maybe a more rigorous tree closer to roads, so it can take, for example, salt, et cetera. Or if we're doing a memorial garden, there's a whole obviously different dynamic in addition to the planting of the trees that we need to take into consideration. So it's just making sure we get everything in order.
And I will let everyone know, as we move forward with this, we'll also meet with the town attorney to make sure we're meeting any regulations and
Right.
doing all of the things. So Matt and I as staff may say, oh, why don't we do it this way? And he may say, no, we need to do it slightly different. That's entirely possible, but we just want to get moving forward with it at this time.
And I will say this, our town attorney was also excited about this, and he did a little suggestion of if a red maple can be brought in. It is the town tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of shade trees for like walking areas or even playground areas. Playgrounds are so exposed.
They are.
There's nowhere, like as a parent, I'm not sitting out there waiting for my kid to play. I go and hide somewhere under a tree, but they're always far away. Yeah, now I'm thinking about all these. Do we want to start a document where we can populate it with ideas or on the drive?
So one
How do you want us to
just
do
small
this?
point too, this is a request from the town board, is it not? Or, I just think, so in
Well,
the
it's a great
past.
procedural question.
So in the past, the only items that have really fall under requests from town board have been when they've requested the review, so like when we were looking at revisions to the EPOD
Right.
code. But that was a very informal, like the town board was considering changes to it, and then they, there wasn't like from my understanding, there wasn't a formal vote of them to send it to EECC. It was just, this is an advisory committee, and they asked for their advice. And there's not like a formal decision made by EECC whenever there's a request from the town board. But we can table that and discuss it with Pete and the
Matt,
rest
great
of the
idea.
board.
Why don't we, here's my suggestion. This has been informational.
Sure.
I will make a formal request tonight to add this for a request from the town board for our next EECC meeting. That way, everybody can get their homework together.
Sure.
You can
I
think
like it.
about whether or not you want to agree as a committee to do this or not.
Sure.
As you said, we don't need a formal vote for this, but we
Yeah.
are going to need to do resolutions later on.
Sure.
So that's really where our thinking has been, like, how do we make sure this comes to not just a good idea, but comes into an actual plan?
And I think it's helpful that, you've kind of given us criteria of what you're hoping for the committee to do.
Right.
That's always helpful in
Have a path.
knowing where those boundaries are as well, so.
Right.
Yeah, great. Then that's all we have at this time. Is there any other new business you would like to discuss?
I don't have any new business. I just have a comment as we were going through all the information, and both to Matt and Sarah and John, is that it's just so, you've done so much. Every time, we talk about things and it goes on the list of things to do, and you come back and there's all this information and putting a prototype together of the sign. I just really feel like we have such good momentum, and it's because of the three of you.
Well, and we appreciate that the town board have staff dedicated to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's part of what gets us here, so, thank you. Then with no new business, I'll share that our next meeting is September 10th at the same time, and I will adjourn the meeting at 5:57 PM on August 13th.